costs and the benefits had a lot of unrealised elements.
And so we might need to consider this as a state. Bec Thomas, to what extent are you considering that as a member for Legislative Council in Elwick? You've got a whole list of things you want the government to answer before voting on their special legislation. Where does cost sit in all of that, and what is most important?
Yeah, cost absolutely is one of the front of mind questions that I have, and I really want the government to be open and transparent with members of parliament and the community about what the real costs are, both of the capital infrastructure development costs and the operating costs ongoing. I can totally appreciate the economic and social benefits that having an AFL team and having a stadium can bring to Tasmania if it's done properly. And if I'm making a decision with my heart, Tasmania deserves a team. Tasmania deserves to have the infrastructure that other states have. We should not be the poor cousin of the mainland. We deserve to be aspirational. However, as elected members to Parliament, I believe we're not elected just to make decisions with our hearts. We have to make decisions with our heads. We have to make decisions based on fact and feeling, and weighing up both the economic impacts on future generations to come and the planning legitimacy of the stadium at Macquarie Point are the two key things that I need to be convinced about when it comes to making a decision. To the cost specifically, we need to be convinced the government needs to provide advice and information to demonstrate that the stadium is a viable business proposition. You mentioned, Leon, most stadiums don't run at a profit. It's likely to cost the taxpayer ongoing every year in operating costs, in depreciation and maintenance, and we need to know what those costs are going to be. We need to know of what the cost of realising this dream of having an AFL team and having a stadium is going to be to future generations, and is whatever that cost is acceptable, an acceptable price to pay to realise the dream.
You as a legislative councillor be expecting all of that information to be modelled out to you before you make a decision in the Legislative Council about this new process that will be bypassing the Tasmanian Planning Commission and other organisations?
Yes, absolutely I will. The government will need to demonstrate how it is going to pay for the upfront development of a stadium, what it is actually going to cost. And Stadiums Tasmania will need to demonstrate that there is a viable operating model for the stadium to be a viable business proposition. And one of the things that I think the stadium relies on to be a viable business proposition is to have cricket played at the stadium, and that's a question that's outstanding at the moment, and I don't believe Parliament will be in a position to be able to answer that question of whether it's a viable business proposition until we know the outcome of that.
Will undoubtedly attract some of the gate taking, but there will be sale of beverages, etc., happening there as well.
Bec
so
Thomas,
it's not just
how much of your questions relates to the business model, how it will operate, how much rent the Tasmanian government will get back for spending $105 million plus building a high-performance centre at Kingborough? How much of what you want to know is based around questions like that?
They are critical questions that remain to be answered, and in order to be able to make an informed decision, I will expect that information on the operating model of the stadium will be provided as part of the package provided with the enabling legislation. We don't have a draft bill even to consider at this point, let alone a bill before the Parliament for consideration. I'm not in a position ever where I'll indicate how I'll vote on something without even seeing the legislation I'm voting on. So I expect now the government has abandoned the POS process, there needs to be some process by which we are informed as members of Parliament on issuing a DA, you know, and then as anyone who has ever been issued with a DA knows, once you get a DA to build a house or some other structure, you then need a building permit, you need a plumbing permit. Often it comes with conditions. We don't have information on what those conditions are going to look like. There is so much information still to be provided to help inform our decision, and importantly, as well as cost and conditions, the governance structure is important, the governance framework for who will be signing off on those conditions. I think it's really important that Tasmanians understand that if this legislation passes through the Parliament, it is issuing a DA to proceed with a development based on conditions. There could be a number of points at which one of those conditions isn't met and the project could fail. So if this passes through the Parliament, it's not definitely going to happen. There are going to be a number of steps that need to be taken, a number of conditions to be met.
And so there's a lot of water to go under the bridge. It's 17 to 5. You're on 936 ABC Radio Hobart, ABC North Taz. It's our live conversation about the stadium, asking the questions that you want answered.